Hi, everyone. I am your host, Cindy, and welcome to my next episode. This episode will focus on how and when to start talking finances with someone you are dating. So, this can be, if you're just starting off and you're single and you're dating, or even in a relationship and it's just progressing. So, today's episode is called Love and Money Talks and Finding the Right Moment. So imagine this: you've been dating someone for a few months and things are getting more serious. One night, while planning a weekend getaway, the conversation naturally shifts to logistics, right? Picking a destination, booking hotel accommodations, and budgeting for even activities. What are you going to do when you go to, on that trip? You pause and you realize, you know what? This is a perfect moment to bring up finances in a casual, constructive way. So with a smile, of course, you say, "Hey, how do you usually like to handle expenses when planning your trip? Should we split things or alternate covering costs?" So your partner says, "Yeah, sure, let's," and shares their preferences, mentioning that they appreciate splitting costs but are flexible depending on the circumstances. So the decision flows smoothly, both of you feel more aligned and more comfortable. This moment stands out as a turning point. It's not just about the money, but about the communication, teamwork, and also understanding each other's values. Finding the right context, like planning a trip, makes the conversation feel natural, more meaningful, without putting any pressures or awkwardness on the situation. So it's all about finding the right context, right? Finding the right conversation. So, first thing I want to talk about is, why is timing so important? Why timing is everything. So, let's talk about how financial conversations can set the tone in a relationship. Well, for starters, establishing open communication with your partner, this truly sets the stage for honest and transparent dialogue between the two. It also builds trust. Talking openly about finances, whether it's about financial goals, or your debt, or even budget conversations, this demonstrates vulnerability. It also fosters the trust and builds trust. Setting expectations and having conversations about money can help clarify boundaries that you may have or they may have. It also reduces potential misunderstandings later down the line. It also demonstrates compatibility by how a partner approaches the financial discussion. How do you bring it up, or how do they bring it up? That can really truly reflect broader values and priorities and may even extend into a bigger conversation. So, timing is everything when it comes to talking about topics like income, budget, financial goals in a relationship. And here's how you want to gauge the right moment. So, I want to talk first about when it's too soon to talk about finances. So, when it's too soon is on the first few dates. Like, bringing up detailed financial information early can feel very intrusive or sometimes even overly serious. And if the person doesn't see you as someone that serious yet, or a potential partner, it might push them away a little bit and it might scare them off, honestly. But the first date, you should truly focus on building chemistry, building that connection, getting to know each other's personalities. And it's okay to be clear about who's going to pay the bill, or, it's okay for you to be more observant and not talk about the details on each other's finances. But you can kind of briefly bring up the topic of, like, who's going to pay the bill? You want to split the cost? Do you want to cover, like, things like that? So you don't have to get into the detailed conversations, but because that's just too soon. Also, if finances aren't directly relevant to the conversation, introducing them abruptly might even come across as being forced or even overly calculated. And you also don't want to come across that way either. So, when is it just right? When is the right time to bring up finances? So, when it's the right time is during natural conversations, especially like when you start talking about career aspirations, maybe some life goals. Where do you see yourself in a couple of years from now? Or even when your values or morals come up. Finances can be integrated organically. And for example, you can share budgeting tips or mention maybe a savings goal that you have. Maybe you're saving for a home. Just keep it casual. Also, when discussing the future. So, if a relationship is progressing and you are now fast forward on several dates now and you see that it's progressing, you see potential, and you start talking about maybe traveling together, maybe some long term dreams, or even moving in together, then finance discussions become relevant at that point, and that's the appropriate time. And lastly, when you start to feel that you're starting to trust each other more, you both feel comfortable sharing personal details, then that's when financial transparency can strengthen your trust, but also demonstrate mutual respect for each other as well. So, those are all the right times, right? But when is it too late? So, when it's too late is when a major milestones start to happen. Like if you start to move in together and you start to think, oh my God, we haven't talked about finances, then that's when it's too late. That can create tension if your financial values or financial habits don't align and you guys are not on the same page and you're just now finding this out after moving in together. That is huge. That's a major milestone. That is when it's too late. Also, when challenges arise, this can also cause money issues like overspending or having an unbalanced cost of something. This can lead to misunderstandings and it can also lead to conflict. So don't wait until something happens when to talk about it. You want to kind of briefly bring it up during the right moment. The right moment would be during a natural conversation. And if there's no natural conversations that happen, well, you know what? Why don't you start bringing it up? Start talking about career aspirations. Where do they still see themselves, doing the work that they're doing? Or do they have some goals? Maybe in 5 years they want to own their own company. Well, then start talking about finances then. I mean, these are all great conversations that can happen. So ultimately, the right timing really is going to depend on the relationship's progression and the context of the conversation. So easing into money topics naturally shows that you're being thoughtful while still respecting each other's financial boundaries. So, this is a short episode, but I still wanted to cover it because talking about money in the right moment is so important. So, I want to summarize some key takeaways. Finding the right moment to discuss sensitive topics like finances is so critical because timing is everything. Timing will shape how the conversation is being received. For example, obviously, if you bring up finances early on, like on the first date, that conversation may not be received well. The person may feel that, you know what, you're asking this way too soon. You're being way too intrusive. Like, this is too personal. And they might receive it in a negative tone. But again, timing will shape how the conversation is received. So if you are now fast forward 3 months into dating, now you've established that trust, now you've developed that foundation. Well, they may receive the conversation openly. They may think, you know what, you're right. Let's talk about finances. You're right. Let's talk about where we stand. So, timing also impacts the tone of the relationship. And if there happens to be one that does progress, or you happen to find someone where you do progress, this will definitely impact the tone of the relationship and set the tone. And this will help your partner to understand, okay, I know that she has value in this and she cares about, our financial values being aligned. And that is so important. So I want to leave you with this. I want you to embrace financial honesty and thoughtful timing in your relationships, right? So it's so important. Timing is everything. There is such a thing as talking about finances too soon or the right time or too late. So don't forget, timing is everything. So that is it for this episode, but I encourage you visit my website, sign up for my mailing list. I have a newsletter I'll be launching on a monthly basis to give you all the tips and tricks on finances. And also, I invite you to follow me on Instagram, Prosperity and Grace, for more tips and updates. And lastly, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Apple Music or Spotify. I actually upload my podcast episodes directly to those platforms, so I don't want you to miss out on any of my next episodes. But my next episode next week, we're talking about building a future together. So when it comes to dating, love is not the only thing that you should be compatible on. Your financial values matter as well. So, more to come. And so, take care. Bye. God bless.